Hi everybody, I am B. Olivier Ngonganjawa, a fresh graduate from King Abdullah University of Science and Technology. Today we are very privileged to have with us Professor Luc Bredas, who has kindly accepted our invitation for this interview. Professor Bredas is one of the most influential chemists of our time, and he is a distinguished professor of material science and engineering at King Abdullah University of Science and Technology. He's also the director of international programs at the Center of Organic Photonics and Electronics at Georgia Tech, and the associate editor for chemistry materials. Thank you very much for accepting the invitation.
Well, thank you very much, Guy. I mean, that's certainly a great opportunity to be able to discuss with you this morning. And I'd like, first of all, to congratulate you and your team for taking up the organization of that workshop on writing skills during the MRS fall meeting in Boston. And I'm very appreciative of the time you've put into that and the whole MRS student chapter at KAUST.
Thank you very much. So the reason we set up this interview is really to ask your opinion on writing. And I'll go ahead and ask you the question: what's the importance of writing in academia for students, postdocs, and whoever is involved in an academic job? And how do you think one should really hone the skill? Because it's a never-ending process. Like, we always keep learning, but we always think that we need to learn more.
Oh yeah, that's for sure. Well, first of all, the answer to the question is writing is critical. I have that philosophy in the group, my group. I always tell my guys, well, a work is never completed until you have written the manuscript. And the point is not to have another publication. I mean, I'm way beyond that time, as you might appreciate. But it's only when you start writing the manuscript that actually you need to put everything, all the pieces of the puzzle together. Before writing, well, there might be some unknowns that you don't realize, and you do realize them once you start organizing your paper. Now, it's clear that it's also, as you say, the learning process. I must say that when I was a graduate student, my writing skills were extremely poor, but I had two extremely skilled in terms of writing, and of course in terms of the quality of their science, two postdoc advisors who really taught me how to write a paper. And as I said, being able to write your manuscript well has now become really a critical component of your activities as a scientist, especially in academia, but not only in academia.
Thank you so much for this insightful answer. So, when we write a manuscript, obviously we want to submit to a journal.
Yes.
So, we'd like to, as an editor, how does the presentation of the manuscript play and how well it's written? Does that play at all in the selection process, or so what role does it have? The way the manuscript is?
Well, I think it plays a critical role not only in the assessment that the editors can make, whether they will send out the paper for review, for instance, but also at the end of the day with the people who are supposed to read the manuscript, the paper. I think that really what you need to do is to write a nice story. That's really what I think is an important way of thinking about the paper. What is the story you want to tell? And from there, of course, you have first to motivate and show that what you're doing is of interest. And if it is of interest of a very broad audience of scientists, well, then the quality of the journal you can target will be higher. Then the second thing is that you have, of course, to indicate what you have done, how you have done it. But then at the end, and that's what your conclusions really should be, is what did I learn? What did I learn by doing what I've done? And you need to communicate the importance of what you've learned. And of course, if what you've learned is not much, well, you cannot expect to go to a journal like JAX. If it's really significant, then you can target a very high quality journal. But really, that's the story. Why is what I've done interesting? How did I do it? What did I learn? That's all the components that are important. And I think as an editor, when I receive a new manuscript, that's really the way I look at it. The title should be, of course, informative, should not be totally dull. And then the abstract should really already be a good summary of the aspects I just described. And then I would say that if the title is informative, if the abstract catches the attention of the editor, it will as well hopefully catch the attention of the reader. And then I look at the conclusions precisely to understand what do the authors tell me, what have they learned that will be of interest for my own research afterwards. So that's the way things work, at least in my case, but I'm sure in the case of many of my colleagues as well, in terms of deciding whether the paper should go out for review. And of course, the manuscript should be within the scope of the journal, otherwise there is no point in sending it for review.
Thank you so much. It's a great answer. I think we're all learning from this. Is it so? As students, postdocs, we always worry a little bit when it comes to looking for jobs.
Sure.
And so the question is like, yeah, we may have a lot of papers or no paper at all, and still you want to apply for position, and you worry how to present your CV. What is important? What should be in there? How long should the CV be? So, and those kind of questions. So how do you, what's your recommendation?
So I would say, when I look at the CV doesn't need to be particularly long. I think that 2 or 3 pages is more than enough. I think that, that's maybe an aside, but that's also a component of the CV that's key, that is, who are the people that you list as references. These should be people who know you well and can really write candid letters. That is, who can really say, well, this person is great because of this, of that, of that. There might be some weakness, this and this, but overall, I can strongly recommend the person. Now, I would say that at Georgia Tech and previously at the University of Arizona or the University of Mons, a graduate student graduating from my group, 3-4 papers is more than enough to make for a very good thesis. Again, if for each of these papers there is a nice story to tell that comes into a chapter of the thesis. So it's not a matter of seeing 25 papers as a graduate student. I don't see what that means really. When you list your papers, make sure that you don't put something like this title, Science in Preparation, or this paper, Nature Submitted. It doesn't mean anything. Anyone can dream of having a paper in Science or Nature, right? And so just list the papers. If there are papers which have been submitted, just indicate submitted for publication. And then for each of the paper, sometimes a very short sentence really highlighting your contribution, especially when you're not first order, can be very useful. For instance, as you know, in my group, we have a very collaborative mindset, which means that in a number of instances, I would have one of my graduate students be maybe the second, third, fourth order on a paper, even though that's the person who really did the whole theory section, theoretical contribution to the paper. So a short sentence highlighting that, can go a long way in making the person reading the CV understand what the contribution is. But no hyperboles, don't try to overdo it. It's always a wrong way of trying to push yourself too much. But so stick to the facts. When you have submitted papers, just indicate submission. If for whatever reason, I mean, the number of papers, and as I said, that doesn't need to be very long as a graduate student. If there is hardly any, an indication of why that can be the case, and that the chapters of your thesis, will come into production soon, would be, of course, helpful. But besides the CV, as I said, the recommendation letters are a very strong component of my looking at really going the next step for a potential postdoc or a research scientist position.
I think, it's going to be useful. I think we're going to all work on our CV again based on these comments. So, we're really happy again for your time in answering these very important questions. And I think it was a pleasure having you.
Well, likewise, again, thank you for your hard work, and I really wish you the very best for that session. I know you have the commitments of really good people coming and speaking at the session, and I wish you the best success with it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.